All right. Excellent. So before we do that, Ms. Jones, I want to give you an opportunity to just introduce yourself. Basically, I mean, I know who you are. You did that on the last Zoom, but I want to know your coaching goals, and I also want to hear from Mr. Shields, and I want to know his goals as well for going into the new year. I'm assuming that this is Mr. Shields' first year with you. Am I correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Excellent. So we're going to give you all an opportunity to just kind of share what's on your heart and what you want to achieve this year as a head coach.
Yeah, and my other assistant, she just texted me. She's having technical issues, so if she pops in, great. If not, she probably won't be able to. But my coaching goals, I always tell myself I am a basketball coach, but I also want to be a life coach. I think between basketball and football, those are two sports especially can really prepare you for life. And that's what my goal is, that when my girls leave me and they graduate, they're not only just changed as basketball players, but they're ready for life ahead of them, of how to treat people, just of patience, of being kind to others, and the things that people are bringing in, speakers and stuff like that, them being equipped to there's more to life than basketball. So that's my overall goal of what I did not receive when I was playing and what I did get from a coach here and there, but it just bigger than basketball. So
Excellent. Thanks for sharing that. Mr. Shields.
Kind of the same thing. My goal is to make these girls come out better at the end of this year. They started, and I mean that on the court and as people. And I also, I want them to understand that, I can come in and help them learn about basketball, and I can teach them certain things, explain to them, oh, this is how it works. But I also want them to see how I respond to them, how when they're having a rough moment or they have a hard moment on the court, how it can be handled, because I know a lot of them don't always have that person there to show them, hey, this is how you handle adversity. So I want them, like Coach said, just to be ready for the next step, whatever it is after high school, whether it's playing ball for college or going straight to a job, military, whatever the case may be.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you sharing that. And I want to say this to kind of segue into our training is going to be very important, is that I noticed that Ms. Shields said something about life coaching. And you pretty much just kind of piggytailed off of what she was saying as far as being able to affect change or drive outcome at that same level, specifically when it comes to dealing with adversity. And here's the thing I want to make sure that you all are real in tune to, is that, as a life coach, many life coaches, what they do is they just like every other coach, they rely heavily on their advice. People look to them for advice. People look to them to, advice on whatever it is that they're trying to achieve. That's the reason why the life coach was added to, that person's quest for success. So one of the things that you're going to learn in this program is that you're going to learn how to coach beyond advice. Because one of the things that we did in our research when it came to purpose development coaching is that we looked at those deficiencies that are in the coaching space, life coaching specifically being one of them. And we wanted to be able to drive higher outcomes. All right. So all of our research was basically geared toward, identifying what those deficiencies are and then putting the systems in place to allow individuals to drive higher outcomes. And that's the reason why we came up with the Certified Purpose Development Coaching Solution. And I'm saying that because in this community, that's what you're going to hear about. You're going to hear about Certified Purpose Development Coaching Community. And you're going to understand why purpose development, number one, is radically different than personal development. I always say it like this: where personal development leads off, purpose development take over. Okay, that's critical. Please make note of that, because you're going to hear that on many occasions. That is a critical piece when it comes to working with student athletes, adults. It doesn't matter. This entire program is built on that concept, because we can give people a bunch of advice. You need to read good books. You need to stay away from this. You need to do this. You need to do that. Do this, do this, do that, do that. Point you in the right direction. Let's do this. Come on. We can do that. But at the end of the day, purpose is what drives those outcomes. Purpose is what take people to the next level. And I promise you, before you leave this training, you're not going to see purpose the same way that you saw purpose in the beginning. We always say it like this: your mind is like a rubber band. All right. And you know what happens to a rubber band when you stretch it? It never goes back to its original shape. So we're going to stretch you in this training with the hopes of you never going back to your original shape, because that's important, because many coaches out there doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over again, expecting different results. Well, at some point, we have to escape the cycle of insanity and begin to do something different to get better results. And that's what you're going to see in this program. You're going to see what we are doing that's different to drive higher outcomes, which is going to put you in a different league when it comes to coaching. All right. And in fact, we took it a step further, and we call it the new breed of coaches. The new breed of coaches. That's who you are. You are part of that new breed of coaches that understand, number one, there is a threat. Okay. And you guys, if you saw the video, you're going to learn more about purpose deficit disorder. You're going to learn more about, how that affects, you as an individual, the student athletes, and how you can identify and remove it. Well, that's what we're bringing to the table. We're bringing that insight, to help you understand how to identify it and remove it, because it's in your program. It's been there for years. It's been camped out for years. And these new breed of coaches are there to basically develop the skill set so that we can do two things. Number one, identify what it is. And then secondly, remove it. So before we dive into it, which we are here very shortly, feel free to stop me. Okay. Feel free. I'm going to give you some breaks in between the training so you can ask questions to make sure you're all right. I'm stretching you real hard. Make sure you still there. So feel free to stop me at any time. And if you do have questions that you didn't ask, in the initial part of the training, make sure that you jot those questions down so that we can address those questions toward the end of the training. All right. So let's start with our ultimate goal here. Our ultimate goal is to help you all earn your Certified PDD Coach certificate. Okay. Now let's talk a little bit about that. I'm going to pull it up on the screen so you can kind of get a picture of, what it looked like. This is what you're going to receive from the Purpose Development Institute. We are the only organization that issue this certificate. Okay. So we want to make sure that you understand what you're working for, how it's going to affect you, in everything that you're doing as a coach. So again, like I said, this is our certificate, and we created this seal. We have several seals here at our organization that determines excellence, and we call this coaching excellence, the seal of excellence in coaching athletes. See, it's one thing to be a coach, but it's another thing to coach with excellence. Okay. And you're gonna understand exactly what that excellence look like as you go throughout this training. You'll be able to know the difference between what you received as a player and now what you're able to give as a coach, how you're able to push that envelope just a little bit further, to get more out of your student athletes, regardless of what demographic they are from. Okay. Now, I want to make sure I say something in relation to that, because, we get this all the time. Who is this for? Is it for, disadvantaged kids? Is it for kids that are, driving Cadillacs or whatever the school? It's for everybody, because every person suffers from PDD. Every person. Doesn't matter where they come from. Where they come from, the hood, or whether they grew up out here in Buckhead, in Atlanta. It doesn't matter. It's a disease that's attacking people, and it doesn't matter what the economic status is. So I want to make sure we clarify that for you all, because, I understand, a little bit about what you all have told me about, the school that you're at and the demographics that you're working with. Well, guess what? Here's the deal. This is what I want to make sure you understand, and write this down. The kids you're working with, they have hidden assets, just like the kids that's coming from affluent neighborhoods. And even these kids in affluent neighborhoods don't understand how to tap into those hidden assets. And as a coach, you are going to be able to tap into those hidden assets. And where many coaches struggle in any environment is because they don't even know what the hidden assets are. So if you don't know what the hidden assets are, how in the world can you work with them? See, let me say this thought right here. It's the hidden assets that's going to give you the results that you're looking for with these kids. Okay? It's those hidden assets. And you're going to understand what they are as we go throughout this process. All right. So this certificate basically deem you as a qualified individual, confirm that you completed the required instructional hours. So we got 2 hours a day, and we have 2 hours on Friday, but that's not the end. Okay, because there's a 30, 60, 90-day follow-up in which Mr. Bell and Mr. Williams are going to be involved in that as well. All right. So it's not this is just the beginning, but the instructional hours is about 4 hours. All right. So that you can practice excellence in coaching athletes. Now, when you leave this training, you're going to know exactly what that is. Okay. Yeah, and I'll say this, it's hard to, it's unfair for us to expect excellence from the student athlete, and we don't understand how to produce or practice excellence in coaching athletes. But we see this go on all the time. Now, it's not a slight. It's not, to derail anyone. It's just the fact that we just didn't know. We just didn't have any idea, because this level of training and research has not surfaced yet until now. So the purpose development seal of excellence in coaching athletes indicates that the student has acquired competencies in the 4 building blocks, all right, to coach athletes on how to use the utility of the body to build self-culture. Okay, that's what that means. All right, the utility of the body. And we're going to connect the dots for you in this training. This is very critical when it comes to driving higher outcomes, because remember what I said, they all have the same assets. They might come from different parts of town, have varying skills and talents, but at the end of the day, they have the same hidden assets. And this program certainly allows you to be aware of what those assets are. So to start, there are 4 basic building blocks that you're going to master. Okay. And that's why we have them listed here. First building block is the responsibility building block. The second one is the building block that give the student athletes an advantage. And then we're going to master some skills on how to help them. See, it's one thing to give them advice on what to avoid, but it's on another level to give them the skills to empower them to avoid something. Can I get an amen? You see, it's 2 different things, and we can either give advice, or we can give them the skills on what to avoid. And what we're going to do is we're going to give them the skills, because see, here's the deal, Coach Jones, you don't live with these kids. You can't live with these kids. So they come into your environment, but guess what? They have to go back to their environment. And it's in their environment where some of their biggest challenges might be, you might be working on them. Okay. Whatever those challenges are. Okay. But we want to make sure that we're able to give them some tools, watch this, to go back into their environment. Here's the risk that most coaches have, is that they give a bunch of advice, and the risk is these kids have the tendency to leave that advice in your office, because they know they got to go back and deal with people that don't have the same mindset as the coach. All right. That's not preaching the same thing as the coach. So they might, I'm just saying, the risk is there. We're always dealing with that risk. The risk is there to where they might leave your advice might not survive in their culture. Okay. Might not. All right. We understand the power of influence and having that positive influence in people's lives. But we want to minimize that risk. And we can minimize that risk by transferring the skill set, watch this, that's going to follow them all the days of their life. They can't get away from it. They can't escape it. All right. Because that skill set is an intricate part of who they are. All right. So we're going to go through some things here. I'm going to just do again, like I said, an overview, just talk about some critical points, in this training. And then we're going to rely on you to go back and dig into that manual to complete those exercises as well. So if you have your manual handy, I'm going to stop sharing this screen. I'm going to go to the manual where I'm going to pull up the manual so we can start going over some things in the manual. All right. So again, Ms. Jones, you're in the right place at the right time. All right. Life coaching is dead, but purpose development coaching is alive. All right. It's alive and it's well and it's effective. One of the things that we call it's the most disruptive coaching solution in the world. And you're going to see that by what we bring to the table, you're going to see how disruptive that is. Because see, here's the thing that you want. When these kids go back into their environment, they need to be disruptive, okay? Because there's things that they have been accustomed to because of their environment that have caused them to become a product of their culture. So we got to have a training solution that's disruptive, okay? That can disrupt that pattern that a lot of these kids are familiar with. That environment could be in their neighborhood, it can be on a campus, it could be within the school system, it can be anywhere. All right. So we have to be disruptive. And that's what this coaching solution is going to provide for them. It's going to provide for them a disruptive skill set so that now they can disrupt, all of this negativity, bad attitudes, bad behaviors, character, and all that kind of stuff that they're dealing with and put themselves in a better position. Watch this, to make better decisions. Okay. Because at the end of the day, they have to make their decision. They're going to weigh your advice. They're going to weigh what they know. They're going to weigh what's coming from their culture, and they're going to make a decision. So we want to make sure that we can optimize their decision-making skills. And this training is certainly going to give you the tool that's going to help them optimize their decision-making. And you'll find out that tool is actually who they are. All right. It's an intricate part of who they are. Now, here's a thought I want to make sure that you realize before we dive deep even further. A lot of coaches know who they're coaching, but they don't know what they're coaching. Okay. Many coaches know who they're coaching, but they don't know what they're coaching. And you're going to find that out throughout this process. In other words, we know who the person is based on their gifts and their talents, based on, the parents, the culture, where they come from. We recognize the who's. And we recruit the who's, but we come short in coaching the what's. All right. And this program is going to give you insight on what it's going to take to be able to coach the what, because it's the what that allows you to coach beyond good advice. And that's what, we want to make sure that you walk away. That's one of your biggest takeaways in this training. All right. So with that said, I'm going to take a little pause, see if y'all okay. Any questions, any comments, anything that Mr. Shield, what have you seen so far that's sounding good to you?
Well, me personally, I'm always looking for ways to reach them, the students, at a different level. I've worked with lots of different kids, but this is already starting to creep in and make some sense in my mind.
Gotcha. Ms. Jones, you want to comment on that?
The only thing I just like the word, it's like looking at the manual, the word disruptive coaching solution. I just like that. I'm just excited to dive in and look at that more.
Excellent. All right, here we go. So this training is going to help you become an active participant. Okay. These things that we're going to be talking about in this training are things that happens every day with these kids. It even happens in your life. And many coaches are passive participants in this area. They're passive. Again, they're giving advice that's basically passive. All right. They're not active participating in this area for helping today's athletes identify and remove the growing threat of purpose deficit disorder. See, PDD has been there for years. Okay. Been there for years. And many coaches, again, like I said, they remain passive participants. But now with your certification, you are going to become an active participant. And I'm kind of gleaning a lot of the information that we're talking about now from page 5. If you want to just kind of make note of the page that we're talking about, and then you can make reference to it later. All right. So let's talk about practice just for a second. Let's talk about practice, because when it comes to student athletes, practice is extremely important. All right. No practice, then hey, how can we get better to prepare for the game in the future? Here's a note that you need to make about practice. It's not just for winning between the lines. Okay. Practice is not just for winning between the lines. In other words, it's not just for, my particular sport. I'm going to blow this up a little bit more so that you all can see it. So practice is not just for between the lines. It is also for winning outside the lines to help today's youth take ownership over their future. Okay. So what we're going to learn in this training, you're going to learn some practice habits, of how to help these kids, not just practice running, jumping, shooting, all those kind of stuff. Now, what I'm going to tell you is that the practice habits that they're going to learn by being involved in this program is going to affect them on two fronts: academics and athletics. Okay. You're going to be able to drive higher outcomes in both areas, academics and athletics. So this practice is extremely important. Okay. And when you roll this out to the kids, that's basically what you're doing. You're rolling out a training solution to help them practice purpose at an entirely different level. Okay. That's going to help them understand how to, watch this. This is important. Take ownership over your advice. All right. So that they can own what you're saying. All right. So they're going to be able to take ownership of their future, because the risk is high for them to be connected to camps that exploit weaknesses in their purpose. See, the culture that we live in, and kids are a part of different camps. All right. Just their posse, who they're hanging out with. All right. That's their camp. But it's those camps that's exploiting weaknesses in their purpose. And when that happens, it undermines their athletic performance, and it undermines academic performance. Okay. So we want to make sure that, number one, we recognize that, we're coaching, to provide solution to minimize the risk for those camps exploiting weakness. So here's what we do typically. We just give a bunch of advice. We're giving a bunch of advice. We put the kids on advice overload. They get advice from their parents. They get advice from the teachers. Then they come into your office, they get more advice, but we never give them a skill set to minimize the exploitation of those weak areas in their purpose. That's what this training does. Okay. Because now we're going to be able to, head this thing off before it begins to undermine their growth potential. Okay. So that's major solution there. So practice is on two fronts. Yeah, we're going to practice, according to our specific sport, but we're also going to practice some things outside the lines that's going to drive higher outcomes in both. Here's a major warning. Okay. Major warning. Now you can go back and you can read this document in your spare time, but what I'm talking to you about is coming straight from this particular page. So here's a major warning. Student athletes are constantly exposed to messages that causes them to become a product of their environment. These messages are coming from everywhere. The TV, their friends, social media, they're coming from all these different places. And it has one goal, and that is to make them become a product of their environment. It's the only goal that it has. And in many cases, that undermines their growth potential. It affects their performance in athletics. It affects their performance in every aspect of their life. You know, I grew up with a gentleman, you know, I came from the hood myself, and I grew up with a gentleman named Stephen Christopher. All right. He still holds the state record for the state of Alabama as a quarterback. One of the baddest quarterbacks that have ever came through the entire state. Was recruited by University of Alabama, University of Tennessee, Auburn, Kentucky. I mean, all the bigs was going after this guy. All right. And he get to the University of Alabama, you know, superstar quarterback. Ruined his career. Tell you how he ruined his career. Selling pornography. All right. Ruined his career selling pornography. This guy was a shoe-in to go into the NFL. This guy was extremely gifted and talented. But something as simple as selling, number one, pornography, period. But then selling it, all right, just ruined his career because he became a product of his environment. Powerful athlete, but weak in character. Okay. And we're dealing with that on many fronts. They could be powerful and gifted and talented in so many areas, but they're weak in their character. So as coaches, we got to make sure that we understand how to give them a skill set to build up their character, all right, to optimize their character for a greater purpose, you know, so they can put themselves in a better position so that they're not exploited in those areas. So the future of coaching, the future, that's the reason why we've assembled our team here, is that we understand that the future of coaching is identifying and removing purpose deficit disorder. All right. That's the future of coaching. It should have been, you know, the future of, it should have been the past of coaching. We should have, you know, started out with this, but you know, you have things, it evolves. And now we're evolving into an advanced coaching skill that now we can bring to coaching, the coaching space, as well as the student athlete space. So you guys are engaged in that by going through this training. So you got to have tools. Okay. You got to have tools that you can work with. And you're going to understand what those tools are as we go throughout this training to be able to work with those kids. See, here's the deal. You know, and one example I always like to use is that my background is in electronics engineering. So in electronics engineering, we got all these different tools that we use to measure stuff and all this kind of stuff. If I was to came and set one of those pieces of equipment down in front of y'all would look at me like I'm crazy. All right. Because you don't know how to use the tool. And this is where a lot of coaches are at. They have a very powerful tool that watch this, that these kids bring to practice every day. And these coaches still don't know how to use the tool. And they bringing it there every day. So guess what? We're going to teach you how to use that tool. So here's a thought on tools. Tools is, coaches have one of the most powerful tools for winning the battle between culture and self-culture. But they must know how to use the tool to help student athletes reclaim ownership over their future. Okay? That's what you're going to be using the tool for. Reclaiming ownership over their future. Now, think about this, y'all. Coach Shield and Ms. Jones, Coach Jones. Practice is a present activity for the future. Okay? It's a present activity for the future. So we want to make sure that we understand, you know, that these practice habits that we give them are going to not just, you know, be for that particular moment, but even outside the line, it's going to prepare them for future success inside the lines and both outside the lines. Okay, so now everything that these kids are doing outside the line, they understand, watch this, how this is aligning to what they have signed up to do in athletics. Because a lot of times they trying to figure out how does your advice aligns with what they want to do. How does your advice align with helping them make a better decision? Okay, they want to know that. But now we're going to be able to show, you know, put a very powerful system in place to help that alignment, to facilitate that alignment so that they can make better decisions. We call it coaching beyond advice. Okay, now listen at this thought right here. 100% of your advice is connected to purpose deficit disorder. 100%. Everything that you're going to instruct that student athlete to do is connected to PDD. So PDD is just waiting on their lack of insight on how it attacks, and it's going to undermine at every chance, undermine everything, every piece of advice that you are giving to those student athletes. So 100% is connected to PDD, and coaching athletes must include defining PDD. All right. Now, here's the definition. Okay. Let me go ahead and give that to you. That's on the next page. Let's skip down. And the reason why we're going through it like this, because, you know, the combination of your notes and what you're hearing, when you go back and you read this document, is going to make so much sense. It's going to accelerate your learning curve when you go back and you dive deep into the document itself. So there's the definition of PDD. I know a lot of people always ask me, well, what is this thing called PDD? We hear you talking about it, but what is it? All right, so here's the deal. The body is made of 8 body parts. All right, we call them the utility of the body. And PDD is the inability to recognize how the utility of the body connects to purpose. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to have a little fun. All right, a little exercise. We're going to give you an opportunity to guess what those 8 body parts are. So who want to take the first crack?
This is a weird one, but I'm gonna say your hands.
That's one. Ding, 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 ding. We call them sparkles. So when you get it right, we'll give you sparkles. So you get sparkles, all right? So that's one. Number 2.
Your mind, your brain.
You think we should give him sparkles?
I see the sparkles.
Okay, we're giving sparkles on that one. All right, sparkles,
Sparkle, baby.
We're gonna let you slide, but we call it the crown. Okay.
Yeah.
Top of your head. Gonna call it the crown. All right. Come on, y'all got 5 more to. I'm gonna say what?
6.
6 more to go.
You got 6 more to go.
Your eyes.
Oh man, they are good. Give them some sparkles.
Okay. Hey, Coach Jones. Hey, Coach Jones is on it.
All right. What's some of the rest of them?
Your heart.
No sparkles, my man.
Oh.
You didn't get no sparkles. Get the buzzer on there.
Ears.
What is it?
Ears.
She is all over it.
Sparkles, baby. Sparkles.
All right. What else?
How many more do we have?
Give me 1 second.
Hey, Coach Shields, man, you gotta represent me. You gotta get one, baby. You gotta get one.
Gotta get one. He gotta get one.
He gotta get one, Dex.
Yeah. Yeah, you had said something before. He cut out. You said something.
Oh, I was saying, how many more is there?
You said that. I think I got 4 more.
Yeah, we got 4 more, right?
4 more.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Got 4 more.
Did they get the rest of them?
No, how many they have?
Yeah, we'll wait
We
on.
got 4 more.
Yeah, 4 more.
Yeah.
So we have hands, crown, eyes, ears.
Your feet.
Hey!
Some sparkle.
Hey.
All right, 6.
That's 6 or 5.
No, we own number 6.
Oh.
Your mouth. Oh, no.
Yes.
Yeah.
Woo!
She's on it. She's on it.
The chain. What else? Last one.
You know what? I think Coach Jones been through the training already.
Wait a minute. We got 2 more. 2 more.
Got 2 more.
Yeah,
Haven't.
2 more.
Your legs.
Nope.
Nope.
I was gonna say feet.
We already got the
They
feet.
got feet.
We already have feet.
Yeah, I got that one, Coach.
He said, "Don't take away his shine."
That's right.
Hey, Shield said, "Hey, Coach, I
Trying
already
to
got
steal
that."
your sparkles, man. What else?
I'm not sure.
All right, I'm gonna give you a hint. One of them is below the waist.
Your knees?
Nope.
Ah.
Sexual organ.
Big one.
Big one.
That's a huge one.
All
Like
right.
an organ or
The sexual organ.
a sexual organ?
Yep. What's the last one?
Like your ribs to breathe? I don't know.
What's the last one, Dex?
What all they got?
The
Hands,
mouth.
crown,
They missing the
eyes,
mouth.
Did they
ears,
miss the mouth? Did they get the mouth?
I thought we
Nope.
said that.
Yeah, we got now.
sexual organ. You use it to smell.
The nose.
Your nose?
Your nose.
Oh,
Okay.
I thought about that one.
Yeah. These are 8 areas that we constantly give advice about. And you're gonna understand that as we go throughout the training. You know, we put kids on advice overload on, you know, who they following. That's what the feet represent. You know, don't follow that person, don't do this, don't do that. We give them advice on what to look at, what to listen to, what to say out of their mouth. We give them advice on their hands, but it's symbolic of another thing that we're going to talk about. On the nose, which represents your attitude, the smell of your attitude. You're either going to have a good smelling attitude or it's going to stink. All right. So we give them advice on stinky attitudes. We give them a lot of advice on the sexual organ piece. Okay. Now, these are 8 areas that are exploited on a regular basis. They are exploited by the culture that they are a part of. Okay. These are the things that's working against our advice as parents, teachers, coaches. It doesn't matter. Purpose deficit. Here's the deal. When there's a deficit in connecting these body parts to purpose, then guess what? It's going to create a dysfunctional character. All right. I'm going to say it again. When there is a deficit in connecting each of these body parts to purpose, it creates a dysfunctional character. So as coaches, we don't want to just give advice. We want to be able to coach beyond our advice. Why? To get rid of the deficit. Are y'all with me? All right. We're coaching beyond our advice so that now we can help these kids get rid of these deficits. Why is that important? So that they can minimize the risk of becoming a product of their environment. Because their environment put a lot of stress and pressure on all of these areas, y'all. Specifically the sexual organ piece. All right. A lot of stress and pressure on those areas. The mouth, what to say, cussing folk out, you know, you just couldn't help yourself. You just had to say whatever you know, that pressure comes from the culture that you're in. Okay. So we want to make sure that we are skilled. We have a better understanding on how to help these kids take this powerful instrument. Okay. This powerful tool called their body, which has more value than just running, shooting, dribbling, you know, passing, you know, all that kind of stuff. You know, we can coach talents or we can coach purpose. Okay. But we're going to show you how to do both, because what most coaches do, they're used to coaching talent, running, jumping, shooting, dribbling, passing. All right. Increasing agility and all this kind of stuff. We're used to coaching talent, but now we can figure out that we can get more out of talent when we start understanding how to coach purpose. Does that make sense? All right. You're probably like, we getting there, man. You really stretching our mind. We're getting there. So that's what we call coaching beyond advice. Okay. Why is that important? Because there are some unknown risks. Okay. And these are the unknown risks right here that you see on the screen. You know, these are risks that we're dealing with every day. The delay in development and growth, lose interest in athletic and academic excellence, express uncontrolled frustration and anger, experience cognitive dissonance regarding actions. These are the risks that we're dealing with. In other words, they make decisions to do certain things and they can't connect that decision to a purpose. They just do it. So they distance themselves from the consequences of the decisions that they make. All right. But when we remove that deficit in all of those 8 body parts, then we can minimize these risks that we see here on the screen. Any questions, any comments? Everybody good?
Good.
A weak character is the biggest risk for an athletic program. Okay. A weak character, that's the biggest risk. Biggest risk. It can affect you. It can affect the program in so many different ways. All right. So we want to make sure that, you know, we are targeting, you know, what do we need to do to optimize that character for a greater purpose. So one of the ways that we do it is by identifying and removing PDD. All right. That's the biggest way, you know, to be able to do that. We call it unlocking the soul of champions. Okay. This is where we unlock the soul of champions at. Let me move this slide down here a little bit. Keep track of my time here.
I do actually have a question.
Yes.
Real quick. With pertaining to the body parts, is there one body part in particular that you advise to tackle first with PDD?
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually 2. And the 2 that oh my gosh, that is a great question, because when I'm thinking about, no, there's a whole lot.
That's a great
all
question.
of them. Let me ask you this question, then I'm going to answer yours. What do you think are the 2 most attacked body parts?
The 2 like what they're getting from the coach or just in general?
Yeah, from the culture, the ones where they receive the most stress and pressure from.
I would say the crown, because of what is being said and what they have to process or what they don't process.
No, that's not.
Or how it's received. And then I'm looking at what I wrote down with the body parts so I can look at them. And then honestly, I would say feet, because you said you said follow, and sometimes with the coaches that we have, they shouldn't be followed because they're not the right leader yet to have players to follow them. If that makes sense. Or even teammates around them. So.
Yeah, it does. And both of those are, you know, correct answer, but the 2 most attacked is the mouth and the sexual organ. Simply because they both have the ability to create. You know, I can destroy things with my mouth, or I can create things with my mouth. And we understand the creative power of the sexual organ. And the culture basically is flat out against, you know, those 2 areas. You know, it's going to try to put words in your mouth to have you saying things that you know you shouldn't be saying. And most of these kids, they end up saying things that doesn't align them to where they want to go in life. In other words, they say things that reflect where they are, not where they're going. You see, you're trying to get them to another place, and they keep saying where they are. But coach, you know, there's no but. You know, we need to make sure we develop you in that area. All right. So those are the 2 most attacked. All right. Now, all of them are attacked, because when you say level of importance, they all are up there. I mean, it's hard to distinguish which one is more important than the other, because you're absolutely right about the mind, the crown, and what it represents. You're right about the eyes. The eyes, you know, we look at things every day. And this is one of the biggest way that the culture try to exploit weaknesses in our purpose, by what we see, putting images on social media, putting images on the TV screen, you know, on billboards, everywhere we walk, you know, there are images. And that's why, you know, people always say sex sell, you know, well, that's the things that we see. Because see, here's the thing that I want you to understand. All 8 of these body parts You know, they deal with our lusts, what things that we lust for, you know, things that, you know, that turns on that animalistic nature that we have that say, I just gotta have it. All right. And the culture is crafty at exploiting weaknesses in that area. You see, and we see it happening in every athletic program, man. Every program. There's no program that's void of this. You know, whether they're going to Harvard or, you know, they going to a community college, it doesn't matter. You know, the culture would put that pressure on these weaknesses, you know, until we begin to fortify, you know, those particular areas. So PDD is not a medical condition, but a state of the soul. Okay, it's not a medical condition, but it's a state of the soul. And you're going to understand more about that. All right. And I don't want to jump ahead of myself, but you're going to understand, you know, how to really identify what you are working with. You're not just coaching talent. Okay. But there's something deeper than talent that you're coaching as well. And that's the reason why we say it's a state of the soul, because there's some things that you need to explore in that area as a coach. All right. So we call it the soul of champions. The soul of champions is it deals with this. If we want to unlock the soul of a champion, then guess what? We got to remove PDD. We have to remove it. There's just no doubt about it. Because I tell people all the time, especially when we look at what's going on in the NBA, at this time of the season, and Charles Barkley said it last night, man, these guys got heart. They believe. Guess where that's coming from? It's coming from the soul. You see, it's coming from deep within them. You know, you can be the most gifted team out there, but at this stage of the game, it's what's on the inside that's gonna cause you to be a champion. See, we can build champions. Building champions is not what we do with the gifts and talents. It's what we do outside of the gifts and talent, that we're going to be able to distinguish what that is and how to work with that side so that we can have not just a winning season, but we can have a winning program, not just a championship season, but a championship program. Okay. And that's what we want to do. Why? Because we build champions. Like Coach Jones just said, she wants these girls to be champions in life. Okay. Champions in life, champions of wherever it is that they want to go. Military, trade school, junior college, D1, D2, it doesn't matter. We want them, at the end of the day, we want them to be champions. And now you're going to understand how to build champions beyond just the rah, 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 you know, hyping people up, you know, getting them all energized. You know, champions are not built in just the pregame talks. Y'all know that, right? Pregame talks don't build champions. All right. It's those things outside of the pregame talks, you know, that builds champions that we want to make sure that we are involved in. In other words, it's the points you score outside the lines that build champions, not the points you score inside the lines. Okay. So winning games versus winning the battle. Today's youth are under tremendous pressure from the culture, and they need help to win the battle between, watch this, self-culture and culture. So those 8 body parts, we can use those 8 body parts for self-culture. And if we fail to use them for self-culture, then the risk is gonna be high for them to become a product of the culture. And that risk is there on so many levels. So our job as coaches and leaders is to help these kids build self-culture. Okay. And you're going to see some very powerful thoughts as you go throughout the training to kind of reiterate that fact and build the case for what we're doing in that space. So any questions, any comments? We're coming up on the completion of the first hour. You know, I want to, you know, give you all a short break, not a long break, but a short break. So you kind of, you know, clear your mind a little bit, go get some water, and then come back in here and we'll continue with where we're going in this process for these first 2 hours. Everybody's good? So you want to take a quick break, quick water break, and we'll get back in here and we'll fire it back up and keep it moving.
I got to break away. I got a meeting. I gotta get to. But I'm glad to see both of you on, and well, Sierra knows how to get in touch with me.
Appreciate you, Dex.
So if you need something, just let me know. All right.
Will do.
All righty. Let's go ahead and dive in since everyone is here. And continue our journey. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to cover quite a bit of ground in these in this last hour. Again, you know, I just want to emphasize the fact that your homework, you know, between now and Friday, make sure that you go back and you know, dive into the manual, because a lot of things that we said thus far is going to make a lot of sense, you know, to you. You're going to see some additional information as well, but it's going to make a lot of sense. It's going to add more dimension to what we just talked about. And then on Friday, we'll spend most of our time on the practical side of this. In other words, you guys are going through 4 hours of training, but you're only going to have to spend about 15 minutes with the student athletes to get them to understand this entire training. All right, this entire concept. So it's not going to take a long period at all. You know, kids don't have the attention span like that. So we want to make sure that, you know, we accommodate for that with a real quick rollout. So we're going to spend a lot of time on, you know, helping you understand how to roll it out. But first, we have to build that foundation so you understand what you're rolling out. So that's what this process is to help you, you know, look at the nuts and bolts that drives the practice activity that they are going to be involved in the rollout. And we will say this is that in your first rollout, we're going to be there for you. In fact, we're going to roll it out for you with the kids. All right. So that you can, you know, see how it's done. And then from there, you should be able to take over and do the rollouts yourself, you know, with incoming, you know, athletes, because you're constantly cycling them through your program. But we certainly want to be there to you know, hold your hand while you're going through that initial rollout with the student athletes. All right. So let's go back to that last thought that I said about the winning program, because the winning program, the championship program, is basically consists of those 4 blocks. Remember, we talked about those 4 blocks in that certificate, you know, using those 4 blocks for building self-culture. All right. Self-culture is critical. Okay. It is absolutely critical to this entire process. The reason why our kids are at a disadvantage because they don't have self-culture. You know, they don't know how to build self-culture. I train kids in this all the time. Not only do I train kids, I train adults in this because they weren't trained as kids. You know, I train adults on how to build their self-culture when it comes to leadership, when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion in so many areas of our business, because the skill set was never taught, you know, in the first place. But self-culture works perfectly in athletics. All right. It's one of the most powerful tools that we can use as leaders to help them take ownership over our advice. See, if we want to make our advice more valuable for the people that we're giving it to, we have to help them build self-culture. Okay. So that's why we broke this down into 4 simple building blocks. And you can go through and you can look at the details as to, you know, what does it mean? I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that because you'll be able to see it in your reading. Is that block number 1, you know, we're starting a movement to help today's youth take more responsibility for their success beyond good advice. That's what we want. We just want these kids to be responsible for their own success. All right. That's why we call this the responsibility building block. Then secondly, we want to give them the home court advantage. All right. To increase their chances of winning the game of life. So we'll talk about that. Then we're going to deal with, you know, what to avoid, but giving you the skills to avoid embarrassment in your life, you know, things that, you know, can lead to embarrassment that's connected to those 8 body parts. And then lastly, block number 4, we're going to set it up. We're going to set up the system. Okay. We're going to show you how to set the system up. And when we set the system up, guess what we're doing? We are setting them up for success. All right. We're going to set them up for success. That's why we call it the setup, you know, because again, like I said, we give a lot of advice, but we don't give the system to set the to set the parameters for success. So you're going to understand how to set those parameters for success so that now they can take responsibility for their own success. So here's another thought that I want to make sure that you make note of. And it's a thought that's prominent at the Purpose Development Institute. And it goes like this. The world is your classroom and is waiting on you to come to the front of the room and give an accurate report on purpose. The world. You know, my daughter just graduated from high school 30 days ago. And I coach her and her brothers in this same process. And I said, the moment you throw that cap up in the air, the world just became your classroom. You thought you was through learning. Now I want to introduce you to a new classroom. And in this classroom, it's waiting on you to come to the front of the room and give an accurate report on purpose. I cannot tell you how many adults that I work with that don't know how to go to the front of the room and give an accurate report on purpose. So guess what? They're miserable in their careers, in their relationships, in so many areas of their life because they were never taught how to give this accurate report. So that thought we call the master thought. That's the master thought that governs everything. Yeah, go to school, get a good degree. But at the end of the day, you can have a 5 degrees and still not know how to go to the front of the room and give an accurate report on purpose. Y'all know that, right? I work with them. I work with a lot of them. You know, I was telling the group last night, in my last client, I never worked with so many people with doctors in front of their name and still didn't know how to go to the front of the room and give an accurate report on purpose. All right. Because they were never prepared for the world's classroom. So they're having all these dysfunctions that they having to deal with. So that's why we call it the master thought. Okay. You as a coach, you're going to understand the importance of working with these kids with the master thought so that they can become what we call PDI smart. Okay. They might be smart, but they're not PDI smart. Like all those doctors that I was working with, they were smart, but they weren't PDI smart. Okay. And we want you to be PDI smart. And we also want these student athletes to be PDI smart as well. So you can see the definition on the screen. And here's a thought I want to add to it. Then we'll go over that. It says today's coaches must be PDI smart to help today's youth minimize the risk of becoming a product of their environment. See, that's what PDI smart is all about, is that when you understand how to develop this level of intellect, you know, you're able to minimize that risk, okay, of becoming a product of their environment. You know, this is important because I work with a myriad of people from different places, locations, backgrounds, economic status. All right. This is important because when it comes to succeeding, traveling the road to success, most people never make it down that road because they become a product of their environment. The environment, you know, put them in a position to compromise going down that road. So we want to be able to minimize that risk by identifying and removing PDD. Okay. So very powerful definition. You want to make sure that you are able to memorize and make note of. All right. So I got a question I want to ask you. Y'all ready? Let me test your knowledge. What does it mean to be PDI smart?
Well, so is it personal deficit institution? Is that right? PDI, is that correct? Or is it personal?
Well, PDI is just the name of our company, Purpose Development Institute Smart.
Okay. Well, to be PDI, I mean, just a simple version of we're talking about the disruptive coaching is basically disrupting what is wrong to bring out, like we're saying, the good things from the 8 body parts and all that different stuff.
Yep. Simple definition. Go have a crack at it, Mr. Shield.
I was just going to say, yeah, just to make sure we can identify and point out what these deficits are so that we can take them away.
Yeah, yeah. But see, here's one thing I want to make sure that you get down in your spirit. I'm gonna go back up to the definition again. All right. Minimize the risk. Okay. Minimize the risk of becoming a product of the environment by identifying and removing PDD. Our biggest thing that we want to make sure that we understand when it comes to working with these student athletes is that we're here to help them minimize that risk, because that risk is always there. Okay. So now we're giving them the skill set on how to take this powerful instrument that they have and connect those body parts to purpose, so that now the risk is low for them to become a product of their environment. So just keep that in mind, because, you know, as you're working with them, you want to make sure that you're always working in the capacity of, the reason why I'm doing this is to help you minimize the risk, because I know that risk is high. All right. I do this with my corporate clients. I do this with everyone, you know, is that the reason why I do certain things in regards to purpose development is to help them minimize that risk. Okay. So I want to make sure that we put a little bit more emphasis on that as we move forward. Okay. So let's go to the responsibility building block. This is not gonna take very long at all to get through this block. All right, because it's extremely important. This is an eye-opening. All of it is eye-opening, but this one, you know, really opens up our eyes to help us see purpose in a light that we've never ever seen purpose in our entire life. So when we're talking about responsibility, we say that one of the biggest challenges for today's youth is taking responsibility for success beyond advice. And I want to make sure I give you this thought. Where advice leaves off, purpose must take over. Where advice leaves off, purpose must take over. Because remember what I said, they might not have, your advice might not survive their culture. So they're going back into a culture where, yeah, they heard your advice, but where your advice stops, then purpose has to take over. Okay. That's the reason why we call it coaching beyond advice, because we want to give them the skill set to sustain the value of our advice. And how can we do that? Well, we help them understand the purpose of the utility of the body. Now we're going to help them sustain, all right, the value of our advice. Okay, extremely important. So sports can be used as a vehicle to start one of the most powerful movements among youth. The energy of purpose, write that down. The energy of purpose is the driving force behind champions, not only inside the lines, but outside the lines. Okay. Now, I'm going to say something very important about the energy of purpose. Okay. This is important because, you know, you go into a lot of coaching circles, you hear people talking about, I'm gonna help you find your purpose. I'm gonna help you do this. I'm gonna help you do that with your purpose. Purpose was never meant to be sought for like a lost set of keys. It's not something that we find. It's something that we hack into, meaning that it's already there. Why am I gonna go look for something that's already there? I just have to understand how to hack into purpose. Okay. And when it comes to working with these kids, that's what we do. You know, I'll give you an example. I rolled this program out to some hardcore murderers in the prison system. And they asked me, how was you able to take the violence to zero in 2 weeks with these hardcore murderers? I said, all I did was hack into purpose. It was already there, but I just gave them the skill set to hack into it. You see, and when I gave them the skill set to hack into it, they understood how to be more resourceful with something that was already there. They made better decisions. Okay, we're talking people that, you know, society has thrown away and considered to be the lowest of the lows. All right, we put them in a very powerful position to where, you know, the toughest guy in this prison system became my #1 student, you know, in this entire prison system, because of what we're talking about now, being able to hack into purpose. Okay, so now let's get into how do we do that? So I'm going to ask you all a question. When you think of purpose, all right, what comes to mind and how would you define purpose?
So on a personal level for us individually.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess I don't know if this is exactly what you're asking, but my purpose for me is to be the best father and husband that I can be, and to continue providing for my family in different ways.
Okay. Excellent. There's not a wrong answer to this anyway. Coach Jones.
When I hear the word purpose, I just think of what you are supposed to be doing for the betterment of yourself and others. And then from like a spiritual standpoint, it's what God has given you, what you're supposed to do in this world, the gifts He's giving you for it.
Okay, and both of those are correct. So let's expand that just a little bit. All right. Here's a simple definition of purpose. Is when the intent to do something outweighs the resistance to do it. When the intent to do something outweighs the resistance to do it. Because you're going to always, when you say, I'm going to do something, there's always going to be resistance. So even when we find out what it is that God called us to do, there's going to be resistance to what it is that we do, whether it be a husband, a provider, a coach, it doesn't matter. There's always going to be resistance, but your intentions to do it must outweigh the resistance. Now, the reason why we define it that way is that it gives us more control over our degree of purpose for the moment. All right, here's another powerful thought that goes like this. Your degree of success in the future is dependent upon your degree of purpose in the moment. You say it again. Your degree of success in the future is dependent upon your degree of purpose in the moment. So the more I can exercise control over my degree of purpose in the moment, then I can increase my degree of success in the future. Ask any successful person. In fact, there's a gentleman that I study all the time. Is a book for CEOs, and it's called Purpose, the Start of All Great Companies by Nikos Morkoyannis. He said, if you want to understand anything about successful people, you have to see it through the lens of purpose. Because when you see it through the lens of purpose, then you understand a whole lot more that drove them to success. Okay. So the degree of purpose is extremely important. So the question is, how do we control our degrees of purpose? All of this go back to those 8 body parts. Okay. Because now I can use my eyes and control my degree of purpose on what I look at. Oh, I can't expose myself to all that stuff all the time. I have to put some content before me that speaks to my purpose. So I just hack that routine and use it for purpose. All of the body parts fall in that category. Okay. So that's where we start to increase our degrees of purpose. Now, what we did here at the Purpose Development Institute, we created what we call the Purpose Development Bridge. Okay. It's called the Purpose Development Bridge. Right there on the screen. Okay. So what we did was, in our research, we broke purpose down into 4 subcategories. Okay. Number 1, you have what we call the big 3 purpose questions. Okay. Number 2, you have the gifts and talents. Number 3, you have your philosophy of purpose. And then number 4, you have your character. Now, let me ask you all a question. Which one do you think constitutes the most percentage of purpose for an individual?
Character, maybe.
Okay. Mr. Shields.
I was like the first one, the big 3 purpose quotes.
Okay. We're going to give Ms. Jones the sparkles.
All right.
She won the sparkles again. Mrs. Jones, Mrs. Shields, we have to give you another shot. come back and try again. Because when we go down and we look at this, there are the percentages. Okay. We broke it down into percentages. Big three purpose question, 10%, 17% gifts and talents, 20% philosophy of purpose, 53% character. All right. Now, let me ask y'all another question. Why do y'all think this is important? Because a lot of times people, they look at stuff like this and be like, oh, okay, well, whatever. Why do y'all think that's important?
So we know where to put the energy into.
That's a great answer. Ms. Jones?
I was thinking the same, and then also, I mean, just with the character, if you have the right character, then you're gonna want to know your purpose and dive into it. But like if you don't, you wouldn't care less about it. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah, it's important because it allows us to understand what does it take to scale our growth potential, number one.
Yeah.
Okay. What does it take to scale our growth potential? And how can we condition our character to become more? See, there's two reflections of purpose. Number one, what you do, okay, with your gifts and talents. And then the second reflection is what you become. All right, what you do and what you become. Now, let's go down to our next graphic here, because this is going to be extremely important. And it's going to, we're going to apply it toward the coaching space as well. All right. We call it the 17 plus 83 rule. Okay. 17% of your purpose deals with your marketable skills. That's what we see on your resume. That's your gifts and talents. This is where recruiting is taking place when it comes to athletes. We look at your gifts and talents, but that only constitutes 17% of who you are as an individual. Well, the other side is 83%. We call these the meaning-making skills. All right. So we tell coaches, why are you spending 100% of your time on something that only constitutes 17%? 17% of what the person is all about. Notice what I said earlier. You got to know what you're working with versus who you're working with. So if I look at the 17%, I know who I'm working with because we know them by their gifts and their talents. We know LeBron by his gifts and talents, Tiger Woods by his gifts and talents, Michael Jordan by their gifts and talents, but we didn't know that Tiger Woods had some stuff going on behind the scenes. Are y'all with, you hear what I'm talking about? That was the 83% that was neglected in Tiger Woods' life. Okay. In other words, there wasn't a whole lot of development on that side to cause him to move away from a dysfunctional character, because that 83% is what determines what you become. All right. It determines, the work that we do to help individuals avoid becoming a product of their environment. Does that make sense? So if I want to understand what that is, then guess what? I look at the big three purpose questions. Okay. I look at the philosophy of purpose, and I look at the character. Those three things right there is how we build self-culture. Okay. That's how you're going to work with the athletes with this tool to build self-culture. See, this tool, it optimizes the 83%. Okay. It's going to help you optimize the 83%, because when people can make meaning out of something, then that's where the magic happens. But if they can't connect the dots, then it's going to be difficult for them to engage in whatever activity that might be, or whatever you're trying to get them to do. So you're going to understand how to work also on the 83% side. Okay. So that now, not only do they have marketable skills, but they're also going to be able to optimize their meaning-making skills. All right. We call it the difference between coaching talent and coaching purpose. A lot of coaches coach talent, but what you're going to understand is how to coach purpose. Okay. Because that is extremely important for you to be able to understand what does that look like as a coach, and how does it look like how does it look to these student athletes that we're going to be able to work with? How, you know, how is this going to translate into practical activities? And again, all of that is in the last block. Okay. So right now we're just talking about the building block number 1. All right. So how do we get them to take more responsibility? We work on that 83%. Okay. If we want them to take more responsibility for our advice, it's that 83% that we got to develop. We got to help them understand what the big 3 purpose questions are. We got to help them understand how to build another philosophy, because all these kids that we're working with, believe it or not, they have a philosophy. You know, my kids, when they start hitting 16, 17, 18 years old, they start developing their own philosophy. You know, I'm like, wait a minute, hold up, player, time out. You know, time out. You know, let's shut it down. Let's analyze this a little bit. All right. So we can put things in perspective, and so that you can develop the right philosophy and condition your character. Everything I do with those 8 body parts, that works toward conditioning my character. Every activity that's connected with that. You see, that's what makes this program so effective, because now these kids understand what they need to do to condition their character. You know, I asked my daughter the other day, I said, are you still keeping track of your points? Because we have a point system that's connected with this whole thing. She said, no, I'm not keeping track of my points, but I developed the habits that came from the tracking of my points, because I have a habit now that I created that caused me to condition my character every day. Now, you know how that make us feel with her going to start college at Kennesaw State next semester? You know, it make us feel pretty good, you know, that she's going to go there with an advantage of not being able or being able to avoid becoming a product of her environment, because we've already set this up for her and my 2 sons as well, which are older than their sister. So any questions on the 17 plus 83 rule? Pretty straightforward, isn't it?
It is.
All right. So 17 plus 83 rule. We always said this, coming down to the last part of this portion here. We tell the kids, we tell the coaches, you can either make excuses or make purpose, but you can't do both. Say that again. You can make excuses or you can make purpose, but you can't do both. Now, if you want to work with me, I'm going to show you how to make purpose. Because if I show you how to make purpose, man, you can turn your mess into a masterpiece, your setback into a comeback. You see, when I show you how to make purpose. And that's the mindset that we want to help them develop, you know, as student athletes, is that we're giving them the skill set now on how to make purpose using something that they work with every day. They just didn't have any idea that this utility had a purpose connected to it. All right. There's a researcher. His name is Robert Keegan, and you're going to see that throughout the document. He's a 40-year Harvard researcher that we got a chance to vet our stuff against when we were doing our research. And he said that the process of growth involves the evolution of meaning. All right. If we want to help individuals grow, we're going to have to help them evolve in how they make meaning out of everything, coming out of the hood, you know, going to the next level, whatever. You know, it doesn't matter where they come from, what their circumstances are all about. We can help them make meaning. And as a coach, you know, that's our responsibility. How to make meaning out of doing the things that they need to do to become a better athlete. If I can connect meaning to that, then guess what? We can help them grow in taking responsibility for their athletic performance as well. We can build champions from the inside out. All right. Not just working with the gifts and talents that they're bringing to the table, but we can build champions working with that 83% that, you know, that constitute what a champion is made out of. That's what Atlanta Hawks is driving from right now. The Atlanta Hawks are driving from, they're being driven by that 83%. Okay. That's what's driving their activity right now. That's what's driving them going out there and just blowing folk mind, because You know, I live in Atlanta, and Atlanta is notorious for having, you know, home games and the fans are against the other team. So now, you know, they're making believers out of everybody simply because they've been able to tap into that 83% that we're talking about, but we're just kind of bringing a little bit more clarity to it. All right. Does that make sense? Y'all good? Y'all good in the hood?
Oh yeah.
Y'all just riding along,
Yeah.
man. Y'all like, man, this is easy breezy. I can see Coach Jones' face. She got it all over her face. We're going to give you an extra sparkle for that. It's easy breezy stuff, right? All right, so let's look at the advantage, and then we'll close it out with this. We got about 30 minutes left. And then, like I said, on Friday, we will spend about most of our time on the setup. We're going to go through what to avoid real quickly, and then we're going to spend most of our time on how do we set this system up. But before we do that, let's look at some advantages real quick. So what I want to do, I want to get some participation from you all, some reading participation on a few things. And that way we can kind of, you know, get you involved in bringing this content to life. So if I can get a volunteer to read this highlighted portion for me, that would be great.
I got it. You said starting with the athletes, or which part?
Yeah, this part right here, the highlighted italics portion.
I
Right.
got you. Okay. The home court advantage is not isolated to a home playing court or field, but transforming the utility of the body into an instrument for taking advantage of purpose.
Okay, you know, that's pretty self-explanatory. You know, that's, you know, we've already described what that is. This is what we're doing. We're just taking something that they have every day, and we're just transforming it into an instrument for taking advantage of purpose. See, that advantage has always been there. Okay, always been there. But now we're able to create awareness for that, for them to take advantage, you know, of that instrument and connecting it to purpose. I'll read this portion here. Coaches who fail to give athletes the advantage over PDD will increase the risk for athletes who struggle to perform at peak levels. Okay, this applies to not just athletics, but also applies to academic performance as well. All right, building block 2. Now, let me explain this right here. I want to spend some time on this right here, okay? This is where, you know, you're going to really be stretched, okay? Because we incorporated, you know, here at the Purpose Development Institute, we do what we call a source root analysis, okay? And in the source root analysis, this is where we go get additional insight that give us an advantage of driving higher outcomes. All right. So everything that we do here at the Purpose Development Institute has its roots in the Hebrew letters. Okay. So our source root analysis is how we connect two things. Write this down, y'all. This is important. Existence and performance. Okay. Existence and performance. Now, most coaches, when they want to increase performance, sometimes it's a shouting match. You know, you better do this. Don't do that. I mean, we just have our method of trying to get more out of the athlete. Okay. But here's what coaches do not understand. Not just coaches, but leaders in many different spaces. Performance is connected to how a person exists within that space. Okay. Performance is connected to how they exist. So we can scream and shout all we want to, you know, to try to get the best performance out of them. But we also need to understand, how do we add value to their existence? Because existence drives performance. Okay. How we exist in a space drives our performance. whether you're a husband, wife, leader of an organization, entrepreneur, coach, athlete, it does not matter. Man, woman, your existence is always connected, or your performance is always connected to your performance. Your existence. Your performance is connected to your existence. Okay? So in that, we do what we call a source root analysis. Well, we take the Hebrew letters, and the reason for that is because each letter, they have additional wisdom and insight that give us clues as to how we can increase our existence. Okay? Different clues, how we can optimize our existence for better performance. That's the reason why we conduct the source root analysis. All right? So when we look at this Hebrew letter that you see on the screen, it's called the letter Mem. M-E-M. All right. And this is the shape of the letter. And some Hebrew letters, they have a different shape when you put it at the end of the letter. So when the letter Mem is at the beginning, it looks like this. When it's at the end, it looks like this. Now I'm stretching you real quick, okay? All right, because this is very powerful and important for you as a coach. Now, there's another word in Hebrew called Egypt. Egypt is a type and shadow of a world that attacks and undermines your purpose. That's what Egypt is. It's symbolic of that world. So the word Egypt in Hebrew means distress. In other words, watch this. We live in a culture that puts stress on our existence. Y'all still with me? That stress us out. We've already talked about that. Now I'm just showing you what's responsible for that. So Egypt give us a very powerful message. In other words, when we look at the beginning of the letter Mem, you see the small opening there? Here's what Egypt is telling your student athletes. Don't listen to what that coach saying. They don't know what they're talking about. Come on back out here where we are. We're going to welcome you with open arms. All right. Come on back. Now watch this. When Egypt get them back out there, it's going to close in around them and make it difficult for them to scale their growth potential. Make it difficult for them to unleash this purpose that we're talking about. We're fighting against this every day. We're fighting against Egypt, this culture. We just put a label on it. All right. We call it Egypt. So as a result of that, we call them Egyptian slave. All right. An Egyptian slave is someone with high growth potential, but very little insight on how to remain consistent with that growth potential to avoid the risk for becoming a product of their environment. This is what we're working with every day. That not only for these student athletes, you're working with it for yourself. All right. I can give you examples of how Egypt tried to get me to do different things as a man. You see, try to get me to undermine my commitment to my wife, and and all the other stuff. I mean, Egypt is notorious for coming at us in so many different ways to help us or to get us to compromise who we are. And what happens is it'll close in around you with purpose deficit disorder, and it will make it difficult for you to connect to purpose. Okay. That's all this graphic is about. Again, I want you to understand what you're working with, not just who you're working with. You're working with individuals that have a strong challenge ahead of them. All right. Because the letter Mem means development and growth. That's what this letter means. It means development and growth. So watch this. This culture that we live in is undermining our development and growth. I don't care how much advice that you're giving them. This thing is constantly working to undermine the development and growth. I give you an example of one of our clients that we're working with right now, Carl McRae. He's the owner of Atlanta Celtics. Put 26 guys in the NBA. All right. Carl told me in our last meeting, he said, my coaches, I've been trying to tell my coaches, certain things for years, and it seemed like they just real slow to get it, and they just, taking their time to get there. And then finally it clicks. Same thing with the kids. We telling these kids, all this stuff, and, we want them to get it, but it's just slow going. I said, Coach, I said, that's because you're working with Egypt. You're working against Egypt. Egypt undermines their development and growth. So as a coach, you're going to have to do everything that you need to do to make sure that this system has been optimized for development and growth. You see, so by incorporating this, what we do is we help the student athlete make a quantum leap in their development and growth. All right. And now we're giving them the home court advantage. All right. That advantage that they need to go out and win against Egypt, because now they understand, what's attacking, what does this attack look like. Now, you don't have to go through the process of explaining this, to the kids. All right. This is just for you, for the coaches only. You have to use your own discretion whether you share this with the kids. But the system itself is designed to accommodate for what you see on the screen. Okay. The system itself would do that for you so that you don't have to sit down and explain, well, you're an Egyptian slave. Well, no, I'm not. Yes, you are. No, I'm not. You don't have to explain that. You just know what you are working with, as you're working with these students. Any questions on the source root analysis here?
I'm just gonna read back over on my own.
Yeah. That's fine. And when you come back to the table, bring questions, comments back to the table so that we can address those as well. Okay. So, Mr. Shields, I need you to participate here on reading this for me.
All right. The challenge in youth or player development is helping individuals exercise control over their character without direct supervision.
There we go. That's
All right.
the biggest challenge. Okay. They have the tendency to do what's right when we're around, but what happens when we're not there? That's why we have to rely on the system. All right. And optimizing that system to give them the supervision that they need. Watch this, to make the right decision. Okay. Moving forward. Okay, you can read the next highlighted portion here.
All right. Certified purpose deficit coach, you must help today's youth realize that the victim of bad character is simply the victim of weak purpose. A weak purpose is more sophisticated than individuals do with their gifts and talents. It is the failure to activate the intuitive side to condition the character for better outcomes.
Now, let me ask you all a question. Where does the intuitive side of purpose come from?
It comes within, correct?
Yeah, but more specific. Give me something more specific. We just talked about it.
I'm not sure. I do agree with Coach Steele. He said within himself. I'm trying to think a little deeper.
17 plus 83 rule.
Mm-hmm.
The intuitive side comes from the what? 83% side.
From the side, yeah, from the side that we don't necessarily see.
Yeah, when we understand how to help them with the big three purpose questions, you'll see that, when you're going back through it, build that philosophy and condition that character, then watch this, they intuitively make better decisions. Okay, intuitively make, because all we're doing is that we're creating a stronger awareness of purpose, meaning connecting the dots. We are meaning making machines. I don't care what age group we are. Our brains are meaning making machines. And the more we're able to connect the dots, and make meaning out of whatever it is in our daily routine, the better the decisions that we're going to make. That's why we call that the meaning making side. Okay. Because now we're helping them understand how to optimize what we call the intuitive side of purpose. All right. So the failure to help youth avoid being a victim of a bad character means to confine them to being a slave to their own environment or culture. You see, that's the last thing that we want to do, is to leave them in that position. Because I'm gonna tell y'all, and hear what I'm saying, I work with adults with degrees that are slaves to their environment because they didn't go through a process like this to break those chains of being a product of their environment. Never fails. Always the culprit. I just had a meeting with a high-powered CEO from Chicago 3 weeks ago. All right. Same thing in leadership, even at that level. Slaves to the environment. Okay. Because they don't understand how to optimize this intuitive side that causes them to make better decisions for that moment. Remember, the degree of success in the future increases your degree, is connected to your degree of purpose in the moment. So it's in that moment where I intuitively make purposeful decisions that put me on a path to increase my degree of success in the future. Okay. Y'all still there?
Oh yeah.
Still here.
You ain't checked out or nothing, have you? Ain't gone ghost or nothing?
Nah.
I need to throw up some sparkles. All right, let's talk a little bit about this. We got about 15 minutes left. Let's talk about, have any of you all, have either one of you all heard of KPIs?
No.
No.
Well, in the world of business and success motivation, KPIs is what we call key performance indicators. You know them as stats. Okay. The stats, the player's stats. All right. But what I want you to understand is what I mentioned earlier. KPIs are driven by key existence indicators. KEIs. So coaches salivate over stats and have no idea that stats are driven by key existence indicators. In other words, what value am I going to bring to this space? All right. Now I'm going to show you a trick here. This is a very powerful trick that's going to explain a lot as to the behavior of the kids that you're working with. I don't care who they are. All right. It could be kids from any side of the track. It doesn't matter. KEIs are instrumental in driving attitudes and behaviors. And we have to make sure that, we understand what that is. Okay. So let me read this. When KPIs are the main focus, athletes become vulnerable to environments and cultures that undermine their commitment to develop practice habits to increase performance. Many coaches diagnose poor performance to lack of motivation without realizing that deficits in purpose is the driving force behind the lack of motivation. Have y'all ever given that any thought?
Not in those exact words, but I think so.
Okay. You, Coach Jones?
The same, not in those exact words.
All right. So it's not always a motivation issue, y'all. Because we have a tendency to kind of zone in on motivation and think that we got to become the motivator, to get them to do what they need to do. Well, listen at this thought right here, and I can't go into all the details right now. Every person has an engine that drives their potential. Every person. And what many coaches don't realize, that many of these kids are walking around with a check engine light on. Check engine light on, but we're going to scream at them, holler at them, do all this kind of stuff. But coach, what are you going to do to reset the check engine light? Because the check engine light that's causing them to have the poor performance. Okay. So what we're doing is we're working at that level to reset some of the things that's causing the check engine light to come on. And we call them the key existence indicators. All right. We call it recruiting to a higher purpose. So here's the deal. Recruiting doesn't stop when they're on your team. Okay. It doesn't stop. You know, recruiting is all season long and even after the season, because when they understand how to implement this system, watch, they're always recruiting themselves to a higher purpose. My sons and my daughter, that's what they do. They recruit themselves to a higher purpose. And as a result of that, they're able to make better decisions because they can recruit themselves. Okay. Instead of me giving them advice all the time, you know, I transferred the skill set to help them recruit themselves to a higher purpose so that now they can hack their routines and use those body parts for something that's going to contribute toward where they want to go in life. All right. So let me show you how all of this play out. Let's go back to the big three purpose questions. Okay. Let's talk about that real quickly as we close it out. So the future of coaching not only requires performance excellence, but existence excellence to drive better outcomes. So when we look at the purpose development bridge, there's what we call the big three purpose questions. You know what they are. Number one, every person, I don't care who they are, want to know, why am I here? What am I supposed to be doing? And how can I get better at doing what I'm doing? You can go to China and people have that same innate desire. Why am I here? What am I supposed to be doing? How can I get better at doing what I'm doing? This is something that's inside of every person. This is why I said earlier, purpose is not something that we find, it's something that we hack into. All right. So in order to answer those questions, you know, why, the what, and the how, I have to look at something that clue me in onto what I'm looking for. So when I say, why am I here? To properly answer that question, I have to look at my design potential, what I was designed to do as an individual. Okay. You know, in other words, God designed human beings. You know, I'm not just saying a man or a woman, but the human race, period. And one of the things that I talked about throughout this entire training is that we were designed to make meaning. We were designed, your brain. Look around your room. I see symbols behind you. I look at the symbol, the omega symbol behind you. Well, that omega symbol, you know, it makes sense to me because I can add meaning to it. But if I wasn't able to add meaning to it, that sign wouldn't mean nothing to me. It has no value for my life. You know, the reason why you have it up in your room is because of the meaning that gives you value. You see, does that make sense to everybody? All right. So we were designed to make meaning. The next question is related to direction. What am I supposed to be doing? People are looking for direction. We call them the 3Ds. That's what I'm trying to write on the screen here. The 3Ds. So we have design. All right. We have direction. And I don't want to write it all out because it's just hard to do it this way. Direction. And then the last one, we have development. Okay. Design, direction, and development. That is critical. I think I might want to end the training with this thought right here. These 3Ds are so critical to your athletic program. When the athletes join your program, your team, they're looking for these 3Ds, even though they might not tell you. You're going to be a new coach, new coaching staff. All right. So guess what? They want to know if this staff is going to be able to design value into their life. You know, in other words, they can see value coming from your leadership and how they can design that value into why they need to be on this team. Okay. Why am I here? That's what they're looking for. Number two, they want direction. They want that. They need direction. So they're going to be looking to you all for direction. throughout the season, on and off the court, inside and outside the line. And then secondly, they want to be involved on a team that's going to help them grow, develop. Okay. These are innate desires that we all have. We might not come out and ask these questions, but guess what? We're looking for it. I look for it in my marriage. I want to know how my wife is going to be able to design value into my life. I want to know how I can gain more direction with my wife, how being in this relationship is going to help us engage in ongoing development. Because when one of those three is missing, then guess what? It's going to create problems in the relationship. All right. It's going to create challenges in the relationship. And it's the same thing on a team. When one of those three is missing, it's going to create problems on your team. When they can't design value for being on that team, when they can't see how this team is going to move them in a certain direction, when they can't see how this team is going to help them get better, engage in ongoing development. So those three D's from the Purpose Development Bridge are absolutely critical. All right. And we'll talk more about that, as we roll this out and show you how, we can use those three D's, watch this, to make better decisions. Okay. To make better decisions as coaches, to make better decisions as athletes, to increase our performance, whatever it is that we are engaged in from that perspective. So let me kind of scroll down here and see what else we got, but we are at the end. Did y'all get anything out of this?
A lot.
Oh yeah.
I even like with those 3Ds, I was just thinking about the first one, the design of even taking a step forward, especially with girls, it's just like confidence. You know what I mean? I know that's what my team has struggled so bad with, their confidence. And why am I here? I feel like it ties into design of just having confidence as well. So that's one thing I know as staff I know I'm trying to do as well at our staff, figuring out ways that we can feed into them with that. So.
Awesome. So again, the entire coaching system, and like I said, we'll go over this when we pick back up on Friday, is that they were programmed for self-culture. There are all the body parts right there. We'll talk about the character king. What does that mean? We tell the women, don't get offended because we're using the word king. King just simply means kingly instincts that can navigate greatness. All right. Because when we optimize those 8 body parts, we're turning on those kingly instincts so that you can exercise dominion over your character that's going to help you navigate toward greatness. That's what the system will help them do, throughout this entire process, because now they understand that it was built for self-culture. So we'll start here on Friday and be able to, go ahead and spend a lot of time on the implementation side of it so that you can set this up and understand what it means to set them up for success. So I appreciate your time, your commitment, your willingness to be that new breed. So let me ask you this question. Now that you have been immersed, okay, into the world of purpose development, can you see that? Well, you just kind of explained to me, you see the need, but just kind of give me some more feedback as to value. Can you see more value now than you were prior to you going through the program?
Oh, most definitely I can. Like Coach said, the confidence with this and working with girls, I've noticed that's a big issue in itself. But just I really would like to sit with them and just figure out where their heads are on what they think that they're doing there, why they're there, and what direction almost that they want to go in, to kind of help us design better for them, to get better at. And obviously someone will say, I want to get better at basketball, but I'd be very curious to see which ones want to take some of the lessons that we can give them out into the world.
Excellent.
Yeah, and I was just gonna add, I'm a processor, so I'm processing still, but I like this perspective of because I feel like this is very unique, especially when I just love the word you use of PDD and just like the disruptive coaching. I think this is definitely unique and very vital and useful, especially with, I know with the coaching staff I have and myself, we know that we have power to make an impact. And with this, I feel like we can do it the right way and effectively as well. So
Awesome. Awesome. Well,
But
my pleasure. Go ahead, Mr. Shields.
oh, I was just gonna say one other thing too is that for me personally in my working world, one of the things that I have to do for my job is to create those bridges of relationships and take the time to build them. So this has really given me kind of an extra perspective on that as well, you know. So I like it too.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're absolutely right. You know, we do a lot of bridge building in the corporate space as well, because they done burned a lot of those bridges. So we have to go in and help them rebuild. So again, I appreciate your time, and we're looking at on Friday
9 to 11 Central.
9 to 11 Central, which is 10 to 12 my time. Yep. And I got it down. And tell the other individual, they did get the document as well, correct?
She does that, and she just said she's gonna try to make things right so she can come on Friday, whatever was wrong with her computer.
Okay, and I'll try to make this send you a link or something to this recording, and that way she can go back and it is a she, right?
Yes.
She can go back and you know, watch it and go through it and get more out of it herself, and kind of get her caught up to date with where we are now, to pick up in block 3 and close it out. So again, appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you guys on Friday.
Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.